Hello there, boys and girls. Here we are today. We're going to talk about a little activity that's going on in the cyber world today. But first, what I'd like to do is say thank you, everyone who is subscribed to our channel, who is subscribed to our podcast. If you are not, make sure you go to youtube.com/Parts Counter Gurus and turn that red subscribe button to gray. Go on over to partscountergurus.com and click on podcast links for the latest podcasts out there, and go ahead and hit subscribe there on whatever platform you wish. So that'd be Spotify, Google, whatever. Just have fun doing it. Anyway, back to the subject at hand.
Hey, Jay.
We got a lot to talk about, Keith.
Did you know you're not supposed to do this in other countries?
Why is that?
I don't know. I just did it, and then I realized it doesn't mean what it means here to somebody. So to those of you that I accidentally offended, I meant no. I meant no ill.
Well, would you stop doing it?
Sorry.
Yeah. There you
All
go.
right. Yeah, so...
Right. Let's talk about what's going on, man. Jeez.
Pretty interesting situation that not a lot of people have picked up on in YouTube land, in the streaming world.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I noticed that. It's like this is a pretty big deal, but nobody in our industry is talking about this, and it should be. And
I have a, as you know, and our viewers may not, but I have some background in this what's going on here with Toyota. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty serious from my perspective. It is. Right. So we're going to get into a little bit of Toyota just went through a breach, and this is a pretty big deal.
Cyber attack, man.
And
it is a big deal,
especially with Toyota operating under their whole concept of JIT, which if you want to know what that means, we'll fill you in here in just a minute. But
yeah, stay tuned for that.
To the matter at hand, everybody. And by the way, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn it from red to gray, and that would help us out a ton. So
yes,
this is new, like March, first week of March 2022. This just happened. Mm-hmm. Toyota got a breach. It was a supplier of Toyota's.
Correct.
Now, for those of you...
Kojima Industries.
There you go.
Kojima.
Not uncommon in the auto industry, Ford, GM. Nobody makes all their own stuff anymore, right, Jay?
Right. That's right.
And
these
why
guys
is that, by the way?
I mean, it's just, let's face it, they're, Ford, GM, and all these guys. It's more cost effective to have someone else make that, warehouse it, and ship it, and it just.
Why get into the spark plug business when Denso is already doing a better job?
You and I have already talked about that in past podcasts and past video segments about, for example, where Ford has reached out to, what was it, Google? And
as has, I almost said FCA, but it's Stellantis now, with Amazon doing a similar thing with their infotainment system.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. GM did it with Delphi for many years.
Right.
Yeah.
There's people already out there, doing it right and doing it well. So why not just go after those guys and strike up an agreement and let them continue to innovate and do bigger and better things, and you go concentrate on assembling those cars and designing those things. Yeah,
it makes sense. As I like to say, why get into the processor business when you have Intel and AMD?
Right.
Unless you're Apple.
Exactly.
But I digress. We're not here to talk about Apple. Yeah.
Which Intel, we just found out is, they're going to be putting up a, multi-billion-dollar plant for the chip shortages that we have been experiencing.
Yep.
The new administration has really push. I think the previous administration was also doing the same thing about, hey, come on, guys, let's make these things here in the U.S. And Intel has decided to take that leap, and they've got a little help from the government, I think, with that. And obviously, at the end of the day, we all get on the right side of this problem that we are having with shortages. So, Kojima Industries
in Japan. This was a domestic breach. So this affects Toyota out of Japan.
It was a ransomware attack too, right?
And they usually are, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But this is a domestic partner from Japan. So any of the vehicles that Toyota's making in Japan, this affected. As far as we know, it didn't affect any of the production happening here in the United States. Now, interesting little fact here, and let's just hit their website and see what happens. Yeah. As of this moment, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what it led to was shutdowns.
Correct.
And about 5% of their production was down. I think like maybe 13,000 units suffered being fully assembled because of this. This company, Kojima, by the way, Keith, they supply plastics and those sorts of things to Toyota for probably interior, maybe even like injection molding type stuff. Where it's maybe fascias, could be anything, could be body trim panels, whatever. Could also be engine compartment buttons. You never know. I mean, these guys are probably doing just a myriad of different types of products out there. So
Kojima's website is still down as of this moment, as of this recording.
Wow.
Now that doesn't mean their production is still down, but they got hit pretty hard. Now, first things first, because there's a lot of slicing and dicing we got to get to here, Jay. But as you know, and I might just interview you here for a second, ask you a question.
Please do.
Jay, how hard would it be? So you might be thinking, if you're watching this right now, well, why does that matter in a production plant? Like, can't I make valve train parts or plastics if they're injection molded without my computer? Jay, what does it actually do to your production status in the automotive industry without the use of computerized technology? Like, could you do your job?
Not fully. You would not have the support of what they have in place in most manufacturing facilities, if not all. I think it's a standardization where they have specific statistical processing controls in place.
So for example,
when
we just ran into this valve issue with Broncos, which is affecting we think, small number.
Stay tuned, because we're going to really dive deep into that. I have been on the horn with the folks at AERA, which is Engine Builders Association. So stay tuned for that. We're going to get down to what's going on with those valves and those 2.7 liter.
And for those of you that didn't know, there's a valve issue in these new
catastrophic
surprise
catastrophic engine failures.
But they were able to pinpoint a window of time that these were produced in the plant that produced them because of, what was that term you threw at me again?
Statistical processing controls, or process controls. SPC is what we call it in the industry.
That's fascinating.
And it is. And it does a lot of things. Okay, so me in the background of working for a company and developing products and having them manufactured, I had to go through the process of qualifying plants. And within that whole qualification process, you want to make sure that they have their statistical process controls in place. Here's why. This is a fine example of that. If, for whatever reason, you have a part failure, you've got all the data to back it up, when it was made, when it was put in a box, who was working on it, what time of day, what shift it was on. Those sorts of things are very, very important to pinpointing if you have an issue, and it is a quality control aspect of this industry. All industries have specific quality controls in place. When it comes to these, it's very vital, specifically in the situation with Ford, whereas they've been able to narrow that window down to a specific time that those valves were made. That in turn gave Ford the opportunity to go back on their statistical process controls and compare them one-to-one to find out exactly what units had those valves in it, and they've narrowed it down to a specific serial number from this date to this date, which squeezes it down. I think they have 40 units that have failed so far. They've been able to pinpoint that. But here, you got a situation where you're breached, right? And you got none of that.
You just used the B word. Okay.
Yes.
And you used another one earlier, the R word.
Which is?
Ransom. Did you say ransomware? Okay.
I did. Whoa. So let's get into that. That is your specialty. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on with this, the real meat and potatoes of this cyber attack.
So we're going to throw a whole lot of info at you, everybody, but basically we're covering the 5 W's here, right? Who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Right.
Although how's not a W, but yeah. Anyway,
right. There's a W on the end of how.
But I always, so I digress. So you might think, well, first of all, like, what's the incentive behind this happening? And a lot of times it is a ransom situation. Mm-hmm. Cyber attacks, more often than not, are monetarily driven. Usually they demand payment in some sort of cryptocurrency, right? They're not big on cash because, we can't use the exploding ink packs to track the bad guys anymore like we do in the movies.
Right.
There is no Liam Neeson, Jay, that's going to come out and although
Are you kidding me? No Tom Cruise?
I'm just coming up with a little movie plot here that I might need to write out about a ransom.
Should we bring? I want to. You know who I want to
of course.
in the starring role? Marlon Young, our good friend Marlon. Marlon, if you're out there, pal, we're going to put you in the driver's seat of this thing. We're going to need your help on writing some of the stuff.
So I'll get to work on that right after this segment. But again, I digress. So why does this matter? Well, when you're a company like Toyota operating with a JIT philosophy that Jay will get into in just a minute. And even if you're not, this is common in healthcare, in any automotive industry, this would be the case, any manufacturer, assembler. When you take a business down, you are not only causing them to use millions and millions of dollars per day in many cases, but you're also confronting them with a serious risk of them, believe it or not, going out of business. So, Jay, I've got some data here. This is from the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC here in the United States.
Okay.
First of all, 60% of small businesses, small companies. Now, I don't know what the threshold is on company size. I didn't dig that deep into it, but I've known this number for a long time. If they get breached, if they get hacked, they close within 6 months.
Ooh.
When you are down, and Kojima, for all intents and purposes right now, is still down to at some level because their website's not up, right? So they may have their production line back in place, but 60% here in the United States closed within 6 months. Now, the FTC worked with IBM. You've heard of IBM, right?
IBM,
International
big
Business
deal.
Machines, right?
Absolutely, big deal. Yes.
And they did some polling data, and basically they said that the cost of an average breach. Now, this includes the bigger companies like Target and Home Depot, some of the larger healthcare organizations, all the big ones, right? The average cost of a single breach, $3.62 million.
That's a lot of money, man.
It is. And these companies have historically not dedicated the amount of IT resources they need to protect against this.
Right.
And if you are an organization, if you operate an organization right now and you are not practicing under the philosophy of it's not a matter of if I will get breached or not, it's a matter of when, then you are going to get caught in a really compromising situation and it ain't going to be good. So in many cases, those guys will breach the network and they will lurk for weeks, sometimes even months, looking for the big take, right? Right. So think about it. Let's just come up. We've got a nefarious hacker here. Like, let's come up with a name for our. How about Vladimir? Vladimir's a nefarious.
Let's call Vladimir's perfect.
Vlad. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got Vlad. Absolutely.
Dark Lord Vlad.
Absolutely no relation to anything else going on globally. I just completely pulled that name out at random. Okay.
Nothing.
So you got Vlad here, the hacker.
Yeah. Oops.
And he will lurk on your network for, again, weeks and months. Think of it, you're seeing this guy walk down the hall. Jay, he's got his Vlad name tag on. He's getting his coffee. You see him in the lunchroom. You see him enough that you think he belongs there. And that's sort of the way that, I'm oversimplifying this, but that's sort of the way these hackers work.
I like your analogy of this. This makes sense. Yes.
They hang out on your network long enough that if the intrusion protection that you have in place hasn't caught them by week 1 or 2, then they start to open doors. Then they start to walk up and down the hall, and they're doing that thing like they do in the movies where you look to see that nobody's looking, and then you try this door, and if it's unlocked, you kind of go in and shut it, And that's what goes on, and they're looking for the big takedown. What can we what critical system can we take down, and then use that to hold hostage this corporation so that they pay our ransom to get back online. Now, there's another aspect to this, and it's especially prominent with a company like Toyota because of how they operate their business. And I'm talking about JIT.
JIT, which is just in time, by the way.
Well, there you have
it. And it means exactly that. Most suppliers, most OEM original equipment manufacturers, they don't warehouse a lot of product for assembly. Basically, the reason they don't do that, obviously, is because if they were to, it's not very cost effective for them. So basically what they shoot for is that right timing to get the product right to the assembly line, deliver it right to the assembly line just in time for assembly. And again, JIT, that's why it's there. It's cost effective. It saves a ton of money for the manufacturers, the assembly plants.
You're not having to have extra warehousing.
You don't have to have
logistics. All of that, you basically make it when you need it, right?
It is received into and goes directly to the line, and it literally starts going right on vehicles. They start mounting product or whatever it is, or maybe it's stampings of, say, fenders or something for specific models, and it comes directly to the paint and body shop where they have to dip them and do all that sort of stuff. It's the same thing, but those things get delivered just in time, and it's a huge deal. It's a cost savings for the manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
Again, now, what is written into the language of those contracts, it can get ugly if they don't make it just in time. If an assembly line goes down due to lack of product, or in this situation, lack of product because it wasn't the supplier's fault, they were actually hacked and shut down, I would assume that there is language written in that contract where Kojima is not being fined for that. But had it been due to their own fault, then Toyota would have fined them tremendously a lot of money.
And let's quantify this, because I've got some numbers here. So this is what it cost Toyota in terms of production. They were making about 13,000 vehicles per day. Yes. It looks like they were down about 2 days. They're back up now. So that's, I'm no mathlete here, but that's about 26,000 automobiles that they were unable to produce. I don't know what the price tag on revenue is in 26,000 automobiles in Japan, but I would guess it's a significant hit for them for this quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. When you consider that they had to stop 28 assembly lines at 14 different plants in Japan because of this, both first and second shifts were down, and it cost them a lot of money, cost them a ton of money.
So let me throw a couple other stats at you while we're talking about money and specifics here. This is just mind-boggling when you think about it. So again, information I've got coming from the Federal Trade Commission, there was a 424% increase in cyber breaches last year over year.
Yeah.
400. I mean, that's you sit down and think about that for a minute. That's scary.
Now, do you have any data on who the culprit is, the most, the one to hack the most, what country, where this is coming from? Or
without having specifics on that, but asking our audience to trust me a little bit on this, and historically speaking, a lot of it does come from guys that would historically be named Vlad.
Yes, and that would be in the
rhymes with Russia.
Rhymes with exactly. And they would be located in Eastern Europe, by the way. So
not always. Sometimes it's domestic based. It depends.
Correct.
It can be. There are documented cases where it's disgruntled former employees and that sort of thing.
This, by the way, has the appearance of a little bit of we're going to get back at you kind of a situation, because it happened there shortly after Toyota decided to suspend, let's see here, doing any business with the SWIFT payment system. They're just one of many many countries that have decided, or many companies, I should say, decided not to do business with Russia at this point. And it also extended $100 million in emergency aid to Ukraine. And shortly after making those announcements and actually proceeding, acting upon what they said they were going to do, this particular cyber attack happened.
Yeah,
coincidence? Methinks not.
I mean, and you touched on something interesting here. So, I've got a couple more stats to throw at you while I'm getting all nerdy here.
Okay.
25% of businesses didn't realize that cyber attacks would cost them money. And this sort of comes into that whole technology realm of, not having budgeted for enough of an IT crew, right? That not bolstering up. And so the challenge here is, and I guess you have to look at it like this, it's going to cost you money one way or the other to deal with this. It's either going to cost you money on the front end and hopefully considerably less, or it's going to cost you so much on the back end that you potentially could go under. So in 2021, roughly $6 trillion was the dollar amount assigned to the cyber attacks. Cost roughly $6 trillion with a T in 2021. That's a
lot of money.
Now I'm guessing, and they don't. This is when I look at stats like this, I always go, yeah, it's a little bit broad, but I'm guessing that they probably throw in like all your security measures, right? Like, so if, let's say we own a company and we go and we invest in hardware to protect us against data breaches, that would probably be associated.
Fall under that, yes, the costs.
Your intrusion prevention systems are part of that cost.
Speaking of preventions and prevention systems, there's one prevention system that we all use on a day-to-day basis that Keith he's always on me about my passwords, right? Anybody. Now, you should frequently change your passwords. You should use a password service to make your life a lot easier in order to do that. Now, here's my question to you, Keith, and I'm going to lean on your expertise here.
How many passwords of mine are the actual word password?
Right, yeah. There you go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, exactly. But how often should one, just as a suggestion, or if there's factual, information out there, should one change their passwords? And are companies like this? Are there information technology departments paying close enough attention to this? Because would changing of a password in this particular situation done anything different?
So here's what I can tell you, and here's what the FTC can
I think
tell
I just
you.
interviewed you, right?
You might have. Yeah. It happens.
Yeah.
So the FTC says that over 50% of these breaches are caused by human error of some sort.
Okay, I see.
So that would be the most direct answer I can give you to your question about could it likely be the cause of weak passwords? Absolutely.
Sure.
Many times it is.
Right.
In terms of how often you need to do it, what kind of passwords you need to use and all that, I always just say, think about it from the reverse perspective. Like, what is it that you're securing? If it's your Netflix account and somebody hacks that, all right, not the end of the world. You call Netflix, you get it reset. You're streaming again in 30 minutes, right?
Right. Your Facebook account gets hacked. It's not the end of the world. There's personal information there, but you can also, let's face it, folks, you don't have to give all of your personal information. You don't have to tell them what year you were born so you can see your birthday wishes come in every year. Well, you don't have to do that.
And you don't have to let them save your credit card. So, for example, if it's my bank password, I'm probably changing that every 60 to 90 days. So every 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm using at least a 10-digit password. I will try to throw in a random character in there, meaning it's not a letter or a number, it's a special character, like a asterisk or a dash or an exclamation point or a period or something like that. And your mileage may vary there, but if it's a financial institution or something related to something that could potentially be much more damaging to you personally, I would say that. Or, and you got to think about it like this too, Jay, Amazon or your Fredericks of Hollywood account, if you have your credit card stored on there.
Do you still have that account?
Oops.
Your Fredericks?
I can neither confirm nor deny, but I would encourage any of you that don't let them store your credit card. If you're going to let them store your credit card, you best make sure that you do have a rotating password and that it is a good, secure password.
Right.
Because if they get into your account, I've had it happen with Apple and I caught it, but somebody basically tried to buy a computer and have it shipped to a different address. They didn't crack my password, but they somehow did get access to my account. I called Apple. They took care of it. But it can happen, man. Tens of thousands of dollars of stuff can be ordered on your behalf. So, hopefully that ramble, Jay, gives you enough of an answer to your question to be useful.
It does, and I would like to add to that most of your newer PCs and your MacBooks and those sorts of things have a lot of new technology built into them for the sake of securing your personal information. look through it. It's worth sitting down and going through and reading all of that information. There's obviously some information that you don't even want to give Microsoft and Apple. You have the choice. That's your freedom of choice to do so, because they will share your data, and they do try to improve. There are certain things that if you let them have that information, they will improve upon your experience or other people's experiences. So it's not all bad, but at the same time, just make sure you read the information on that. You can go into your system preferences and just type in search security information or security checkup or whatever, and you can just read through that and help yourself out through that. So, but passwords are key, and then Keith, yes, definitely the credit card information. If you do store your credit card, I have this piece of advice. Just remember that credit cards, if you catch it in time, and you can obviously proclaim to your bank that it is definitely not you, then they will go ahead and waive those charges, but you need to stay on top of those things. Me personally, I am checking my my activity on my stuff at least daily, just to be on the safe side. Why not?
Wow.
It makes sense,
Who knew this was going to turn into such a helpful segment when we started down this road of Toyota and data?
Exactly. I mean, you and I, though, we are we just do this. We're opportunistic. This is it's an opportunistic time to preach to the choir a little bit here about safety.
All right, so
let's
recap, everybody. What have we learned today?
Right.
So first of all, we here at Parts Counter Gurus are not just an automotive talk show. We cover everything, and if you don't know what we're talking about, or you don't know what I'm talking about, go on over to our website, partscounterguru.com. Hit the podcast tab, podcast links, I think it is, Jay, up there near the top. Yep. And your podcast platform of choice, because, we also have one of those podcasts.
It's really good, too. It's called The Counter Show, and it's great.
And in addition to subscribing on the video side as well. And what else have we learned? Number one, make sure you're using secure passwords. Number two, maybe Toyota should have reached out to us, maybe they still could, who knows. And if you are operating under narrow just-in-time margins, not to be confused with Justin Timberlake, I think that's his brother.
Right. It is.
Make sure that you have good cyber counterterrorism measures in place. What am I missing here, man? Is that it?
You're not missing anything other than go.
And watch out for guys named Vlad. There it is.
Yeah, look out for Vlad for sure. Yes, absolutely. I learned a lot today. Thank you for your expertise, Keith, in that regard.
You're welcome.
This is not the end of this stuff. Cyber attacks are going to continue to happen, so pay attention to what's going on around you. If you do get hacked, there are ways to report that. Don't start, writing checks to people, man. Go contact the law enforcement. And who else? Is it the FTC? FTC gets
usually
involved?
It depends. If it's here in the United States, I mean, but believe it or not, the Secret Service can get involved if it's fraud.
FBI will.
Yeah, and the FBI. Yeah. Just as a general rule, trust your gut, everybody. If it feels wrong, if you get that email and you're not sure about it, pick up the phone and call the customer service number of the company.
Exactly.
Not the phone number in the email, the phone number on the back of your statement.
Right. And that's what they're there for.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate. Do it. Make sure you call. So, wow. Good info, man. Yeah. That's why we're the gurus, right?
It is.
Yeah. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, guys. Make sure you turn that red subscribe button to gray. That's youtube.com/Parts Counter Gurus.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.